Hey tea heads, this is Don from Mayleaf. In this video, the world's most prized yellow tea. In this video, I'm going to taste Junshan Yinzhen, the world's most revered yellow tea, and we're going to be shining a spotlight on this tea so that you can make better buying decisions when you're looking for these kinds of high-ticket teas. This video is going to go under the tea masterclasses and the single tea tastings playlists. If at any point in time you enjoy this video, then make sure you hit it with a thumbs up. The more thumbs in the air, the more tea videos are going to come your way. And if you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel yet, go click that button. Welcome, it's Saturday in London and it's a good day for me because I get to taste Junshan Yinzhen, the world's most revered yellow tea. Before we get into it, let's take a step back and talk about yellow teas in general. Rare is an often overused word in the tea industry, but certainly yellow tea is the most rare type of tea being produced. It is produced in tiny quantities when you compare it with all the other types of tea. And Junshan Yinzhen sits at the top of the pile. And authentic Junshan Yinzhen, the really authentic stuff from Junshan Island, is probably the most rare tea type produced. Yellow tea is produced in a very similar way to green teas. So the picking is very similar, very fine picking, and then the leaves go through a very brief shade withering phase before it goes through the fixing phase or the kill green phase. And in that phase, the leaf is heated up to above 150, above 200 degrees Celsius, around there, and that deactivates enzymes in the leaf which catalyze oxidation, so it fixes it in its green state. But with yellow tea, the heating is done in a very controlled way. Usually it's done from kind of warm to hot, and that means that there is a phase where the enzymatic action is actually accelerated before they become deactivated. Afterwards, the leaf is baked to reduce the moisture, and then it goes through the menhuang phase. And the menhuang phase is the yellowing phase, which sets this tea type apart from green tea, and it's quite a laborious and long process. It involves basically leaving the leaves in a moist environment so that the oxidation continues, but it's non-enzymatic oxidation. It's just caused by the moisture in the air. And different yellow teas will have different ways of doing this. But with this Junshan Yinzhen, what they will do, the producers, is after they've gone through the initial fixing, shaping and baking of the tea leaves or the tea buds will be at around 60 to 70% humidity. They will wrap the leaves up in paper and they will keep it in a warm environment, wrapped up for about 24 hours, around a day. And this all depends on the environmental conditions, of course. But they'll leave it wrapped up for about a day, then they'll take it out, they'll bake it again. So that means that whilst it was wrapped up in that moist environment, the moisture evened out. So after the first baking, the outside of the buds are dry, but the moisture still is inside these buds or leaves. So it evens out. So then they go through another baking phase at a lower temperature, probably around kind of 50, 60 degrees. And then the process of wrapping is repeated. So they'll wrap it up again in paper and they'll leave it again for 1 to 2 days. And that process will start to yellow the tea. It will reduce the greenness. It will reduce those green notes in the tea, and it makes the tea rounder and slightly softer. And it changes just the fragrance of the tea. After the second round of wrapping or non-enzymatic oxidation, then the leaves are baked again, and sometimes it goes through another round, but usually at that point it will be baked to dry. And that is the very basic process for making yellow teas. Obviously, after the drying phase, it will go through a sorting phase where skilled workers will basically pick out any twigs or large leaves that they don't want in the final product. And because this tea type is so arduous to make, taking 4 to 5 days from picking to finishing, it is done by very few producers. And a lot of yellow tea that is sold as yellow tea on the market is actually much more close to a green tea, and they don't go through such an extended menhuang process. So there's your little recap on yellow tea. Right, let's focus in on this tea. This is Junshan Yinzhen, top of the pile of yellow teas. There's only a handful of yellow teas being made. The other one that we stock is Huoshan Huangya, which is a very classic yellow tea, probably the second most produced yellow tea out there. We call it Amber Mountain. I'll put a link in the description below. If you want to do a yellow tea AB with this against Amber Mountain, it's really, really interesting. It might be something that you may want to do. So Amber Mountain or Huoshan Huangya comes from Anhui province, but Junshan Yinzhen comes from Hunan province. So Hunan province, the home of fiery cuisine, lots of chilies, and an area in Hunan province is Dong Ting Lake. And within Dong Ting Lake, although it's kind of not really within Dong Ting Lake, it's basically connected to the mainland, is Junshan Island. And Junshan Island is traditionally where authentic Junshan Yinzhen should be made. So Junshan Island, also known as Lover's Island, is basically just about connected to the mainland. You can actually drive from the mainland to Junshan Island, but during some months, I think the summer months, the river floods, and so it is cut off as an island. It's a very small island. It measures less than 1 square kilometre in area, so very, very small island, and it is a great growing environment for tea. And this tea comes from the Tang dynasty. So it has a long history and is traditionally produced in or on Junshan Island. Junshan Island is very low altitude, but it has very high humidity. It's got low temperature. It's got very, very rich soil, and it has old tea trees. And as we know, older tea trees just have a little bit more potency in terms of their flavor, body, and effects. And so this area, Junshan, this island, is where the authentic, true Junshan Yinzhen should come from. However, Junshan is a tiny island, and the plantations on that island are state-owned. They're owned by one group. And so there is a monopoly on this plantation. And therefore, to buy tea from Junshan Island is extremely difficult to do and very expensive. This is true tribute tea. So this is a state-owned plantation. The island, which used to be a Taoist retreat, is actually uninhabited. So there's only a very small number of workers who know how to make this tea, who come onto the island to produce this tea. It has very strict controls in its picking. You can only pick buds that have not opened up into leaves. It has to be picked exactly at the right time. There can't be any dew. You can't pick after rain. It's extremely, extremely controlled. And then you've got the yellowing process, which only a handful of people know how to do. It's very, very, very controlled. And therefore, most of the tea goes to government officials or is gifted to diplomats. You can purchase this tea, but you are talking eye-watering prices. And so I would say that the majority of Junshan Yinzhen out there on the market, especially on the international market, is not authentically from Junshan. It may be possible that they take the kind of second pickings in Junshan. That may happen, but the leaves and the tea trees are protected, so you don't want too much picking. And therefore, if you want any kind of quantity of Junshan Yinzhen, then you need to go outside of Junshan. But most tea sellers will not tell you this. Most tea sellers will say that their tea is from Junshan, and this can be for a variety of reasons. It could be because they've just been told that by the wholesaler that sold it to them, or the farmer or the producer if they managed to get that close to source. Or it may be that they found out, but everyone else in the tea market is selling their Junshan Yinzhen as authentically from Junshan, and therefore you don't want to seem to be selling inferior tea, and so you kind of follow the crowd a little bit. So I'm going to state categorically now, this Junshan Yinzhen is not from Junshan Island, okay? If you want to find Junshan Yinzhen from Junshan Island, you are going to be paying an absolute premium snob price. 100% you're going to be paying top whack. We are talking, I would say, if you see that anything that's less than, say, about $70 or $80 for 10 grams, $70 to $80 for 10 grams of Junshan Yinzhen, then I would say it's impossible that it comes from Junshan Island. I would say that I'm being very conservative there. Actually, true Junshan Island proper pickings, so not pickings that were done later in the year that they can then ascribe the origin of Junshan Island, but proper early spring pre-Qingming pickings of Junshan Yinzhen will be eye-wateringly expensive. And so the vast majority of tea sellers who have Junshan Yinzhen are knowingly or unknowingly not selling tea produced on Junshan Island. If they were, the prices would be astronomical and they would be making a very loud song and dance about the fact that they source from Junshan Island. It wouldn't just be a one-liner in terms of origins written on a website. But if you go to Hunan, you go to other areas around Hunan, close to Dong Ting Lake, then there are plenty of sellers who are selling Junshan Yinzhen style tea. And they are mostly telling people that their tea comes from Junshan Island. So there's a lot of fakery, there's a lot of fibs being told. That means that they can mark up their prices, but the tea seller who buys it thinks that they're getting a pretty good deal for proper Junshan tea, and so they mark up their prices and price match with just under people who are having authentic Junshan tea. And so you get to this point where the prices are escalating far too high. And so, categorically again, this is not from Junshan Island, and the price reflects that. But what we try to do at Mayleaf is what I call buying on the knee. So if you imagine a graph where you've got quality on the y-axis and price on the x-axis, usually there's quite a linear response between the price and the quality, usually, depending on the tea. It's relatively linear. And then it reaches what I call the knee, which is where the price goes up extremely sharply because of some snob factor, some snob value, because it comes from a certain field or whatever. But the quality is only incremental. So from this point here, the price has gone very high, but the actual quality is the quality difference is incremental. So what we like to do at Mayleaf is buy on that knee, where the price to quality ratio is optimum. It's different for different teas, but we try the whole range, especially the top range, and we basically figure out where the incremental change is very, very small, but the price difference is large. That's where we purchase, so that we can get you the best quality tea at the best deal. And I have to say, I have tasted authentic Junshan Yinzhen. I have had that opportunity. It is a spectacular tea. However, when you look at the price, in my opinion, Junshan Yinzhen from Junshan is overrated. I'm sure that there's going to be a lot of people that want to argue with me on that, but I think the price you pay for it compared to the taste in the mouth, the actual experience, when you strip away all the snob factor of it, I don't think it's worth the price that you pay. We're talking huge, huge figures here. And this is the case with lots and lots of teas, where you kind of taste through the different revered fields, the revered growing areas, you taste the revered tea trees, and you find that the price point has been set a lot more about the story and the rarity of the tea rather than the quality of the experience. So, having said that, it's time to dive into this Junshan Yinzhen, which we call Diamond Peak. I'm going to give you all the information that you need to know about this tea, and then we're going to taste it. It's tasting time. Okay, here it is. Junshan Yinzhen. I've showed you the leaves already. And what you'll notice is that it's predominantly buds, but there are quite a few buds and one leaf here. So this is not the strict Junshan Island picking here. That's one of the telltale signs. If you see any buds with leaves, chances are it's not going to come from Junshan Island. So this is buds and one leaf. Color is slightly yellowed, especially the buds, and you're looking at kind of moss greens, those kinds of greens here. But still a very, very pretty, very fine picked tea. You can see it's extremely fine picking tea, almost like a very fine green tea picking. The season for this is early spring. It has to be early spring. We've spoken about this before. Spring tea, the first flush of the season, suit these types of tea very, very well. This was picked on the 29th of March, so pre-Qingming, before the Qingming festival, which is usually around the 4th of April, which is the, calendar time. Anything pre-Qingming is considered to be top grade early spring picked tea. So 29th of March 2017. The cultivar here is the Pingjiang cultivar, which is a traditional cultivar for that area. The origin here, very important, is it's from Hunan, but it's not from Junshan Island. This is from Pingjiang province, which is very close by Dong Ting Lake. Pingjiang province, still close to the Yueyang city, which is where all of the Junshan Yinzhen is produced around that area. So not from Junshan. Stating that very categorically. The picking here is, as I said, buds and bud and one leaf. So very fine picking. The processing for it, let's quickly recap the processing because it is very arduous. It's a very long process, so it's worth you appreciating that. They pick the leaves, they shade wither the leaves for a few hours, 4 to 5 hours. That develops flavor and starts to reduce some of the moisture. Then it will go through its very controlled heating phase. I believe that this has been baked and not pan fired by the taste on it. I'm not sure 100% on that, but it'll be around 200 degrees, something like that, where they deactivate, the 200 degrees Celsius, I have to say, where they deactivate the enzyme, but it'll be done in a very slow, controlled way. After that, the leaves will be left to cool for a bit before being baked, and it will be baked over charcoal, bamboo baskets baked over charcoal. Very, very careful process to reduce the moisture down. So they want to reduce the moisture down to about 60%. After that, they'll wrap the leaves up, usually in kind of 1 kilo amounts, wrap it up in paper, and they will put it in a warm, humid environment. And that's the yellowing process. So at this point, the moisture will still allow a slow oxidation. So it's not going to go dark reds or blacks like it does with oolongs and black teas. Instead, it's just going to slowly change to a yellowing process. It's kind of similar to if you have a green tea and you leave it in a humid environment for a few months, you'll start to see that it goes yellow. So it's this yellowing process. But if you do that with a green tea over that period of time, then what happens is you're losing a lot of the vibrancy and freshness of the tea. What you want to do with yellow tea is lock in that freshness, but then add this kind of rounded, softer, warmer notes that comes through very slight oxidation. After it's been left for 1 to 2 days in this warm environment, wrapped up, it'll then be baked again at a lower temperature to reduce the moisture content down again to maybe about 30%. It will then go through the wrapping phase for another 1 to 2 days before finally being baked dry over charcoal, and then it's sorted. So that's your process. It's a very long, arduous process, which is why yellow tea is produced in such small quantities. The elevation for this is actually about 200-ish, 250 meters, which is a lot higher than Junshan Island. So Junshan Island is relatively low altitude, kind of 100 meters or lower. This, because it's produced in the outlying areas, you can afford to add that bit of altitude, which is a good thing. All right, now, brewing method for this. I've got my 100ml guy one here. I'm just going to warm it up. And I'm actually going to brew this at 75 degrees, which I think is 165 Fahrenheit, for 2 minutes. Now, it's very rare that you see me brewing tea for that period of time. Normally, we're talking 10, 20, 30 seconds. But I've experimented a lot with this tea, and it's one of those Goldilocks teas. You've just got to get it. Once you nail it, once you nail the brewing on it, it sings. But if you kind of over steep it by putting water which is too hot, so a lot of the standard advice with Junshan Yinzhen is to brew it at about 85 degrees. And to brew it for a shorter period of time, maybe 30 seconds. I found that brings out a little bit too much of the warmth and a little bit too much of the astringency. And I found that 75 degrees for 2 minutes is, for me, the perfect way to make this tea sing. Let's give it a smell. I get a very rich marzipan note. So almonds, sugar, there's a slight tang there as well. A fruity tang. In China they have hawthorn fruits, and you have these hawthorn sweets, which are kind of tangy and sweet, and the smell of the dry leaf really reminds me. I'm picking up this tang, and I'm picking up the marzipan. I'm also picking up kind of a slight creaminess, very familiar to white tea lovers out there. So anybody who knows Baimudan, that slight creamy note to it, that's definitely there. Not as rich as a Baimudan, but the yellowing process, I think, has given the tea that creaminess. Right, we're going to give it a very brief rinse. Let the pig have a drink. I'm just going to warm up a little bit of the teaware here as well. I'm going to take that off. Make sure it doesn't stew. With these teas, it's all about being very delicate. So I put 3.5 grams of tea to 100 ml. And as I said, with these kinds of teas, you know, these kinds of teas are very, very pernickety. You need to make sure you get the parameters right for your taste, obviously. So everybody's different. Let's give these wet leaves a smell. Getting some more vegetal notes. Yeah, I'm getting some vegetal notes here. So it's still got the marzipan. It's still got the creaminess. It's still got, but the creaminess is now, it's expressing more fruit now. Fruits like, not so much hawthorn, more green fruits. We're talking berries of some sort, green berries, grapes, gooseberries, those kinds of things. Nuttiness, but then also a vegetal kind of spinachy nature to it as well. Right, I need a stopwatch here. So let me just get that ready. And we're going to be brewing this, as I said, for 2 minutes. Here we go. There we go. Some people don't like to cover it. I think it suits covering. When you're brewing at this low temperature, 75 degrees, I think it suits covering, personally. But, you know, that's my personal opinion on it. So, as I said, I have tried Junshan Yinzhen from Junshan Island. It was an excellent tea, don't get me wrong, it was an excellent tea. However, for the price, I felt it was certainly not worth it. It's a very light tea, it's a very elegant tea. It's got a nice, you're looking for those subtleties, you're looking for that extra bit of body, you're looking for that extra bit of sweetness compared to your run-of-the-mill high-grade bud teas. And it's there. But as I said, I think it's incremental. When you compare it to the price leap compared to this tea here, for me, there's no question. This is a much better price to quality ratio by a long shot. Now, I'd be interested to hear what you guys think. If any of you have tried an authentic Junshan, made definitely from Junshan Island, and there will be, I think, relatively few of you that have tasted that, because it's mostly reserved for the diplomats, mostly reserved. So when I tasted it, it was through diplomatic channels. It wasn't through my tea purchasing channels, because I do a lot of work in China with the Chinese government. So I was lucky enough to get a small taste of it. But if you have tasted it, then great. Let me know your thoughts. Do you agree with me that it's slightly overrated or very overrated? Or do you think it's worth the price? Okay, we're approaching 1 minute 45 here. So I'm going to go back to my camera app, make sure I'm in focus, and we are going to finally get to taste this tea. Sorry about the long-winded intro to this, but I think it's really important that you guys understand this tea a little bit better, because it's often misrepresented. Again, warm notes, almost slight treacle notes in there, like burnt sugar notes in there, which is, again, very different from a green tea. So this is where that yellowing process is. And in my opinion, this could even be yellowed even more. A lot of the time they're shortening the yellowing process, and it's becoming more and more green, these yellow teas. It's something that I'm trying to kind of, tell people not to do, tell my farmers, please, please yellow it fully. I think that this has been yellowed well, but it could have been stretched even a little bit more. Let's show you this color, and then you can see the yellowing here, right? So it is a kind of, in my tasting notes I wrote yellow diamonds. Really clear, really vibrant, nice hue. It's got the greens in there, but it's definitely more yellow than your average green tea, and especially your average bud green tea. I can see quite a lot of activity in there. The hairs on the buds definitely have stripped off a little bit, even though I went through a filter, and it's got good body. Junshan Yinzhen. Cheers everybody. I can see that the body here is nice, medium to thick. Definitely medium to thick. And the flavor when you brew it like this, it's exactly what you want, right? If you brew it too short, I found with these teas, you're searching for it. You get this very ephemeral, very fleeting notes of deliciousness. You kind of, oh, it's there, but then it's gone. With this, the body is thicker, it's persistent, and very fragrant. Let's try to dig into those fragrances a little bit here. So, one of the things that I noticed, which really struck me when I first tasted this tea, was that it has a kind of minerality, like a winter minerality. So if you've ever been skiing or snowboarding and you get off that ski lift at the top of that mountain the first time, and you've got your scarf is kind of frosting up with snow, and you just get that taste in your mouth, that very fresh, snowy mountain air. This tea, bizarrely enough, reminds me of that. Then once you get past that, you've got fruit, and the fruit is actually relatively tropical. In my opinion, we're talking star fruits, we're talking guava, quite light fruits, not particularly sweet, more of the kind of watery kind of tropical fruits. Yeah, I get guava, I get star fruit, and then there's nuttiness, and this is where the yellowing processes come in. And the nuttiness is reminiscent of not nuts, but more seeds, like sunflower seeds or pumpkin seeds. Those kinds of nutty, warm notes. There is a creaminess to it as well, like a kind of fruity creams, like gooseberry fool, and a certain spice, a little spice, a tiny pepperiness in there, a little bit. I'm getting a vanilla note too with that creaminess. It's a remarkable tea when you brew it in this way. The body is satisfying, the persistence, the juiciness on the sides of my tongue is very, very, very apparent. If you brew this short and hot, you get a very dry finish. You get a very fleeting sense of the aromatics that I talked about. They're there, but they're fleeting. And if you go over 90 degrees, then you're getting into the real kind of warm notes. Maybe that suits you, but I don't think it does this tea justice. And in my opinion, I'm just going to brew another round. So I'm adding 15 seconds to this, but I'm going to probably not set my stopwatch. I'll just look at my clock here. I'm probably going to get it wrong, but around that. And so when I compare this tea to my memory, and it is my memory, so I'm not A-Bing, but if I compare this tea to my memory of the Junshan Island grown Junshan Yinzhen, I would say that the differences are very incremental. Maybe a little bit sweeter on the Junshan Island tea, perhaps a little bit thicker in terms of its body. Those are probably the two main differences, a persistence of sweetness and extra thickness on body. But in terms of the general aromas and general fragrance that's coming off this tea, I think that this stands up next to authentic Junshan Yinzhen, authentic Junshan Island grown Yinzhen, I should say, because at the end of the day, there is no definition now for what makes Junshan Yinzhen. It's kind of like a style of making tea, in the same way that Peking duck or Beijing duck is a style of making duck. I do think that the best Junshan Yinzhen comes from Hunan, and I actually haven't seen any Junshan Yinzhen that hasn't come from Hunan. But you know, if you want to be really a stickler about it, can we call this Junshan Yinzhen if it doesn't come from Junshan Island? I leave that up to all of you people out there to argue. But as long as I'm clear to you where it comes from, I feel like I've done my job. All right, so I'm gonna guess that was about 2 minutes, 2 minutes 15. The great thing is when you brew at this temperature, you don't have to stress too much about the time. You could easily leave it 3 minutes and it's not gonna over stew. But try to follow these parameters first and see how you get on. I will show you the wet leaves now because they are beautiful here. Let me just fluff them out a bit. Here you go. You can still see the yellowing here, but obviously it's become more vibrant, and I would say that the palette is much more kind of lime greens, right? So lime yellows and lime greens, the rind and the flesh of the lime, I would say that that is a relatively good description. And you can see that they are predominantly buds buds and one leaf. So very, very fine picking. A lot of people like to brew this in glass so they can see the movement of the buds. That's something that you may want to do. As I said, you may want to A/B this against Huashan Huangya, which is our amber mountain. If you do, I would suggest that you brew it in the same way. So ignore the brewing instructions on the pack. We're thinking of changing them actually, but brew it in the same way. 75 degrees for 2 minutes for the first infusion, and add 15 seconds, and you'll notice the difference. Very, very clear difference. This is a lot fresher than the Huashan Huangya. This is why I think this is this is baked, air baked, and not pan fried, because there's a different note to it, and it would be interesting for you to do that A/B. This is brighter. This is more reminiscent of those bud green teas, like your Sichuan green teas, your Sichuan bud teas, or what we sell as Naked Spring. So those kind of very fresh, very vibrant, very late winter, early spring tastes. It doesn't have the same raw astringency, the green raw astringency that those green teas have, because of this yellowing process, because of this menhuang process, which just takes that edge off, rounds it out, makes it a little bit rounder, a little bit warmer, a little bit creamier, and a little bit nuttier. Smell of the empty cup. Oh, the fragrance is amazing. Smell of the empty cup. Let's let it dry a bit, because this is not super hot water. It doesn't evaporate so quickly. So just let it dry. Let the water dry off, so that the oils in the liquor can coat this nice tulip-shaped cup. And I get this tang, a sweet tang. Apricots, dried apricots. Apricot jam is, I think, what I wrote in my tasting notes. I get that very, very strong. Again, some of that cooked sugar, so the jamminess is there. Yeah, I'm kind of repeating myself. That cooked sugar, treacle, apricots, very nice. It's definitely tangy. More of the dried fruit note rather than the fresh fruit note, which is what you'd expect, considering it's not coming from the wet leaves, which are much fresher, very perfumed. Now I'm getting flowers, very, very light flowers, going down those tropical light white flowers. Really, really, really nice. The nuttiness is there, and you still get that lovely bouquet of fruits as well. So that's it. Junshan Yinzhen. I hope that this video has given you a more expansive knowledge of this tea, so that you can make the right buying decisions when you are seeking out this highly revered and very, very small batch produced yellow tea. That's it, tea heads. If you made it to the end of this video, then make sure you hit it with a thumbs up. Check out our YouTube playlists and let us know if there are any videos that you would like us to make. If you're ever in London, then come visit us in Camden to say hi and taste our wares. If you have any questions or comments, then please fire them over. Other than that, I'm Don from Mayleaf. Thank you for being a part of the revelation of true tea. Stay away from those tea bags. Keep drinking the good stuff and spread the word, because nobody deserves bad tea. Bye.